Hi, I'm Ray. I make music with my live band, the Rayman 3, and in my electronic project, Ori Moto. I'll begin with a short demo of how I perform live with this minimal setup, and then I'll go through how I set it up.
You wanted me to take it all away, but now you're begging me to stay. My cause, Babylon, we're taking trouble to the sky. Babylon, oh, oh,
I'll go through my steps to get to this live performance setup, starting with how I export a song or beat from the song live set and then import it into a separate performance live set. I'll then break down this live performance rig before performing the song again, but while talking through exactly what I'm doing in real time.
This is the song live set. I'll export the song from here in a way that I need it to be to add it to my performance live set.
My background is as a live musician, so I tend to think of my live set like a band setup. My rhythm section of drums, bass, and guitar, or in this case, keyboard or synth, and then whatever elements I may add on top.
The first track is the drum kit, the second is the bass, the third is a vocal sample, and the fourth is a synth pad. And as you can see, each track has a bit of send A or B, that is just using Live's stock reverb and delay returns. I've organized the song into sections. The first scene is the verse, the second is the chorus, and the third scene is the bridge or middle eight, or if you prefer, sections A, B, and C. I'll play a little bit of each so you can hear how they sound.
For my performance live set, I'll need to export all this as stems. That is, each instrument or part as it plays in the song or beat from start to finish. So I'll start by recording a half performance, not a full performance, but just enough of each section to give me the pieces I need to perform with in the performance live set.
What that means is playing through each scene just long enough to get everything that's in each clip. So for example, here in the chorus, I can see that the drum and bass clips are 32 bars long, while the synth pad is only 4 bars long. So that means I'll need 32 bars of this scene in order to get everything I need. So I'll start recording, kick off with the A section. And when we've got enough of that, go to the B section. And then when we come to the end of this, go to the C section. So I'll stop recording there, and this is how the half performance I recorded looks in the arrangement view. I'll zoom in and out using the plus and minus keys. From this, I'll export my stems, that is the individual parts. That means drums, bass, vocal sample, and synth pad. There are two things I need to do. The first is I set the in and out points at the start and end of the clips as they appear here in the arrangement view. The second is I export these stems dry, that is without any reverb or delay from those sends. Instead of turning down each send individually, I'll just go to the source and mute returns A and B. And I'll play back just a little bit of that. As we can hear, the drums sound dry. The pad still has a long reverb tail. I'll just scroll up a bit there. So I'll turn down that release. Relatively dry. Now I can export each track as its own stem. First, I'll solo the drum track. Go to File, Export, or Command-Shift-R or Control-Shift-R on PC, and export it as a WAV file. I'll name each stem in a way that helps me keep things organized. So this first one is the beat. And then I repeat this solo export process for each subsequent stem. And again, each time giving it a name that helps me keep things organized. So 2 bass, 3 vocal sample, and 4 synth pad.
Now that I've exported those stems, I'll close the song live set, open the performance live set, and import those stems in a way that lets me perform the song.
Now we're in my performance live set. First, I'll explain how this is set up. Then as I go through importing the song, I'll go into more detail about ways I use this setup in my live performance. I'll finish up by repeating my earlier short live performance while talking through in real time how I'm using this performance live set. As I mentioned earlier, this performance live set is set up similarly to the song live set. By that I mean the first track is the drums, the second is the bass, the third is for keys or synths, the fourth and fifth tracks have added reverb or delay, and that's using the sends, which just like in the song live set, have live's stock reverb and delay returns. Unlike the song live set, none of these tracks is an instrument or MIDI track. All of these are audio tracks because all my stems are WAV files.
By keeping those stems dry when I exported them from the song live set and then adding basic reverb and delay in this performance live set, all the stems I export exist within the same sound world, which makes the overall mix more cohesive.
Each track is panned increasingly wider left or right as we go along, as the sounds become less fundamental to create more space. Track 8 is for my live vocals. I keep this muted unless I want to sing or speak to the audience. On the master channel, I have an overall EQ, which I can adjust if the room I'm playing in needs that, a glue compressor to squish everything together a bit more, and at the end of the chain, a limiter to keep everything under control and under 0 dB. Now I'll import the stems, the beat, bass, vocal sample, and synth pad. Drag them into the first track, and then I place each clip within its respective track. Next, I set the scene tempo for this beat, which is 90 BPM. If I go ahead and play this now while the project tempo is set to 90 BPM, my track plays back at 90 BPM. However, this song will be part of my larger performance live set, which contains other beats and songs at different tempos, which will change the project tempo, and so playback will sound different. So in order to keep playback at the tempo I want, I'm going to expand the master track, and this reveals a couple more options, the scene tempo and the scene time signature. I'm only interested in the scene tempo. While it's grayed out, the scene will play back at whatever the project tempo is set to. So I'll double click in here, type in the tempo I want, 90 BPM, and now no matter what the project tempo is set to, the scene tempo means this beat will play back at 90 BPM every time. As the clips are now, if I play back this scene, I'll hear the half performance I created in the song live set. And that's because, let's open up each of these clips and take a look. This drum clip contains all the sections, verse, chorus, and middle 8, or A, B, and C. This bass clip, same thing. The vocal sample only happens in the middle 8 or C section, so there's nothing in this first part of the clip. And vice versa with the synth pad, which only plays in the verse and chorus, or A and B sections, and not in the middle 8 or C section.
So I need to break these clips into those sections A, B, and C.
I'll start with the synth pad. I'll mute the other tracks and locate the point inside this clip where it moves from the verse to the chorus, or section A to section B. Okay, so they're at bar 5. So what I'll do is set my in and out points in my loop from bar 1 to bar 5. Before I do that, I'll need to turn this clip into a loop. Actually, to save myself some time, I'll turn all these clips into loops. I'll hold down the shift key, select them all, and yeah, turn them all into loops. Back to the synth pad clip, I'll bring those out points to bar 5 and have a quick listen and make sure my loop is working. Great. Next, I want to create a loop for the chorus or B section. So I'll duplicate this clip. Command D or Control D places the duplicate on the next scene. And double click on this duplicate and move the in and out points from bar 5 to bar 13, and I know that that's where the chorus or section B ends. I'll check that the loop is working. That's my chorus. Then I'll go through and repeat this process for each of the clips. I've gone through and created loops for each of the sections. And as you can see, this looks a lot more like the original song live set. Here in the drums, here's the verse, bars 1 to 5, chorus, bars 5 to 13, and middle 8, bar 13 until the end, or sections A, B, and C of the drum beat. Same thing for the bass. The vocal sample only happens in the middle 8 or C section, so there's just one clip for that and it lives here. And the synth pads only happen in the A and B sections, or the verse and chorus. And now I just need to set each scene's tempo to 90 BPM.
For my performance, I'd like to have an intro with just that synth pad sound. I could begin the performance by just, launching that clip, but if I'm coming from another song or beat which may have another tempo, I want to make sure that I can begin this song at 90 BPM.
So I'll select this scene and insert a new one, Command-I or Control-I, to give me a new scene which automatically has the same 90 BPM launch tempo. I then drag these clips down onto the new scene, and then Command-D or Control-D to duplicate that synth pad clip. Now I have a scene with the intro before the verse. Another thing I do to make this performance ready is to color code the clips. As you'll see when we get to my live performance rig, it's helpful to keep all the clips for one song or beat the same color. With the launchpad, which is what I use to perform, green and red aren't helpful colors. Green is the color of a clip that's currently playing, and red is the color of a clip that's recording or record armed. I'll set all these clips to the same color, and maybe a slightly different color for the middle 8.
When I perform, I keep my laptop out of the way and I try not to look at the screen during a performance. But if I have to, I need to be able to see it from a distance, and I really only need to see a few things.
So to simplify how my performance live set looks, anything I don't need to see, I hide. And then I go to Live's Preferences, go to Look and Feel, and increase the zoom display.
I've shown how I import the stems of one song or beat into my performance live set, and now I want to position this song in the set list. So I'll select all the scenes of this song and Command X or Control X on PC to cut them out, and then I'll scroll down to where I want to insert this song. Along the way, you can see how my performance live set looks as I've added more and more songs and beats. A couple of things to note about this. They're organized in order of ascending BPM. So as I scroll through, the tempo of my performance increases. Between each cluster, there's an empty row or scene. As you can see, the launchpad doesn't display the names of the clips. All I can see is where one song ends and the next one begins. Color is used to group BPM. So if two clusters have the same color, that means these two songs or beats have the same tempo. With each change in color, it means that the tempo is getting faster. And this is important to know if I feel like mixing elements of different tracks, maybe the bass line of this track and the drums of that track. If there's too big a change in color, there may be too big a change in tempo. That may not sound so great. So here's the point in my set list where I want to insert the track I just imported. So I select this scene and Command V or Control V to paste. It doesn't actually paste over anything. It actually just inserts in between. And then all I need to do is make sure that there's an empty scene or row above and below. This clip down here is a reverse cymbal crash, which I'll show how I use in my live performance in a little bit. This is my live performance rig. A launchpad, an audio interface, and a vocal effects processing unit. The mic goes into the vocal effects unit, which goes into the audio interface, which brings audio into and out of live. The Novation launchpad, as we've seen, controls my performance live set in Ableton Live. This is the tiniest USB audio interface I could find, the Alesis Core 1. I chose it both for its compact size and because it has only one XLR input for my vocals, which runs into track 8 of my performance live set. The vocal effects unit is the TC Helicon Voice Play GTX. Inside this unit, I've created a patch for each song or beat in my performance live set. So as I scroll through here, I also scroll through here. I've manually set each patch to have the same tempo and the same key as its corresponding song or beat. So delays, harmonies, everything is done inside this vocal processing unit. And it's all happening inside here, which relieves some of the CPU pressure in live. I don't need to do this. It's not necessary, but I just like using this unit. I use it with my live bands as stomp box, so I'm familiar with it. 2 tips on how I use this vocal effects unit. A little goes a long way. The heavier the effect, the more sparingly I use it. And I spend some time getting the volume consistent from patch to patch, so there's no sudden jumps or drops in volume every time the sound changes. The cables running out of here are all gaffer taped together as one big snake. So instead of untangling and connecting the cables individually every time, they're all already connected, and this makes setup and pack up faster and neater. I just unroll this one thing to set up and then roll it back up to pack up. And shout out to DJ Tech Tools where I first saw this idea. These cables are USBs connecting the launchpad and the audio interface to my laptop, the power supply for the vocal effects unit, and stereo audio outs with adapters. So I can connect to 1/4-inch inputs on DIs or a mixing desk, or to RCAs on a DJ mixer. So I'm prepared for the 2 most common gigging scenarios. All these cables are 3 meters long, and this is useful when the power or audio connections aren't so close by. But also, long USB cables means I can put the laptop out of the way, and all of this is designed so that I don't have to look at the computer screen. I've packaged all of this inside a road case for guitar effects pedals, so I turn up to the gig, remove the lid, connect the audio and power, and I'm good to go. It makes for a quick setup and pack up, which is helpful if I'm playing inside a DJ booth where there's limited space, or as part of a lineup where there isn't much time for changeover between acts. This one may seem a bit random, but I've found it really helpful. A clock with big bright numbers I can see clearly from a distance. Keeping an eye on time can be important, especially if I'm playing between other acts or if there's a strict schedule. Depending on the gig, I sometimes like to angle this performance rig toward the audience. I might use something like this little IKEA laptop stand. And now the audience can see a little bit more of what I'm doing. People may not be able to follow everything, but at least there's little clues, like every time I hit a button over here, my voice changes, or when a light starts flashing over here, the music changes. I find these are more opportunities to engage or connect with the audience. Another thing that's helped me a lot, at gigs where there's an actual sound check, I ask the sound engineer for tips, particularly how the volume, the mix, or the quality of sound may differ from track to track. And based on their feedback, I'll then make some adjustments, sometimes between sound check and performance, but more often I'll take notes and then work on it later. Over time, the more gigs I've played and the more advice I've received, the more the quality of my sound and performance has improved. Now I'll perform a bit of the song again, and I'll talk through in real time what I'm doing with the vocal effects unit and the launchpad. Before I start, I'll add one more thing about the launchpad and why I like using it. It can be used for more than just triggering clips in live session view. It has multiple pages which you can access via these buttons at the top. One I tend to flip to a lot is the mixer page, and this turns the launchpad into a mixing desk where you can adjust things like volume in ways that are pretty much impossible to do with knobs or faders. You can do the same thing with panning, sends A and send B. Send A here you can see, for example, in track 4, reverb is turned up the same way that we saw it was in the performance live set. For now though, I'll just stick with the basic functionality. And as you'll see in a minute, I get a whole lot out of just the basics, like these, the mute and solo buttons, which allow me to control soloing or muting individual tracks inside live. I jump to these quite a bit during my live performance. I also like to start and stop individual clips within each scene to add a bit more variety within each section of a song or beat. Starting with the synth pad on its own, and the reverse cymbal. For the verse, I mute this.
You wanted me to take it all away. Now you're begging me to stay. My cause.
Then to the chorus.
Babylon, we're taking trouble to the sky. Babylon, oh, oh, oh.
And in the mixer, I'll select mute and mute the drums for a moment. Bring it back. Back to launching clips, mute the bass, and do the reverse cymbal. Back to the chorus.
Babylon, we're trouble to the sky, Babylon.
Now I want to bring in the drum beat from the next track. And this is how I start the next song. So as you can see, even using a relatively basic setup, there's still plenty for me to do. I found that performing electronic music live involves this idea that you somehow have to show the audience you're working. With my live band, this is more straightforward. People already know how musical instruments look and sound, and when they see a drum hit or a guitar strum, they can make the connection between what they see and what they hear. But with electronic music, it's more mysterious, or at least more esoteric. Each of us is, in a sense, inventing our own instruments. So for an audience, there might be no obvious connection between sight and sound, and this can cause a disconnect between performer and audience, especially if all people can see is someone fiddling with mysterious gear that they maybe can't even see. So some of us start to feel this pressure to do more on stage, to complicate our setup or look like we're working. It took me some time to learn that there's a difference between what feels like work and what looks like work. Sometimes I might be doing something that's complicated for me, but the audience can't tell, and other times the audience may really respond to or connect with something that I do that for me is pretty simple. So over time, I found myself simplifying what's happening here so that I can focus on what's happening out there. So that's my workflow for performing songs and beats I've made in live. I hope this has given you ideas for ways you can expand or even simplify your own live performance and have fun.